BYD stands for Build Your Dreams. BYD is a high-tech, pioneer company.
The Chinese carmaker BYD is now in top spot.
Chinese automaker BYD is zipping ahead in the global race to make cheaper electric vehicles.
On September 14th, 2025, at a test track in Papenburg, Germany, a Chinese-built electric car driven by a German racing specialist named Mark Basseng hit 496.22 kilometers per hour, becoming the fastest production car ever built on the planet. Faster than every Bugatti, every Ferrari, every Lamborghini in history. And it did it running on batteries, not gasoline. The car was BYD's Yangwang U9 Extreme, and it wasn't a one-off stunt. Basseng himself, who'd already set the previous record on the same car a year earlier, admitted afterward that he genuinely thought he'd already hit the ceiling of what was possible, only to come back to the exact same track and shatter his own number again using upgraded technology. It's part of a wave of Chinese technology moving so fast right now that most people outside China have no idea it's even happening. That U9 Extreme is genuinely absurd on paper. It packs over 3,000 horsepower across 4 independent motors, runs on a 1,200 volt platform, and can complete a Nürburgring lap in under 7 minutes. But the same car has an even stranger party trick. Using a suspension system called Daisos X, it can physically jump its wheels off the ground and bounce to the beat of music. A $2 million hypercar dancing like nothing else on earth. And BYD isn't just building show cars. In 2024, they became the world's first automaker to hit 10 million electric and hybrid vehicles sold. And their newer battery tech can reportedly add around 400 kilometers of range in roughly 5 minutes of charging, faster than it takes to fill a tank of gas. Cars are just the surface of what's actually happening. China now puts more self-driving capable systems into new cars than anywhere else on Earth, with tens of millions of vehicles already carrying some level of autonomous driving hardware. Some of the more extreme vehicles read like science fiction props rather than commercial products. BYD's Yangwang U9 SUV can spin a full 360 degrees in place using independent wheel motors, crab walk sideways into tight parking spaces, and because it's fully sealed and buoyant, actually drive into water nearly 5 feet deep and float there, paddling forward using its own spinning wheels. It's a genuinely bizarre feature until you remember China floods regularly during monsoon season, and a car that turns into an emergency boat suddenly makes a lot more sense. Delivery has quietly been reinvented too. Chinese logistics companies have spent the last few years rolling out drone delivery at a scale most countries have only talked about. In dense cities, food delivery drones drop meals to fixed collection boxes in a fraction of the time a human rider would take, while in rural areas, larger cargo drones capable of hauling tens of kilograms are connecting villages that never had fast delivery infrastructure to begin with. It's less flashy than a hypercar, but arguably a bigger deal because it's already running at genuine commercial scale rather than sitting in a lab. Then there's the robots, and this is where things start to feel less like incremental progress and more like an entirely different timeline. Chinese robotics company Unitree makes a humanoid robot called the G1, about the height of an average 10-year-old at roughly 1.3 meters tall, weighing around 35 kilograms with up to 43 individually moving joints. It walks, runs, sits, waves, and can be trained through imitation learning to perform genuinely complex tasks, and it starts at around $16,000, a fraction of the cost of most other humanoid robots being developed anywhere in the world, some of which run well into the hundreds of thousands of dollars for comparable capability. Unitree has already shipped thousands of units, reported revenue growth above 300% year over year, is preparing a public stock listing, and recently put G1 units to work handling airport baggage in a real commercial pilot alongside a major airline in Japan. Footage of the G1 roller skating, spinning, and even attempting backflips has spread widely online. And while the robot has occasionally stumbled during live public demonstrations, including once at the starting line of an actual humanoid robot half marathon held in Beijing, the pace of iteration between versions has been fast enough that each public failure tends to get patched within months rather than years. The company also builds robot dogs capable of running at several meters per second, doing backflips, climbing obstacles, and responding to natural voice commands. Technology serious enough that versions of it are already being tested by police and military units in multiple countries, not just shown off at trade shows. China has also pushed the humanoid idea somewhere stranger, building androids designed to look convincingly human with realistic skin, blinking eyes, and dozens of independent facial expressions. Chinese firms building these lifelike robots have created working models of historical figures like Einstein and Hawking that can hold conversations and tell their own life stories. And they are already appearing in museums, hotels, and government offices, not as one-off demos, but as a small, growing, ordinary category of public-facing technology. Public infrastructure has gone through its own transformation. Major Chinese airports now run large portions of check-in, baggage drop, and security using facial recognition, letting some travelers move from arrival to boarding gate in barely more than a few seconds per checkpoint without speaking to a single staff member. Some of the busiest hubs in the country have installed hundreds of biometric checkpoints and automated gates in a single terminal, meaning a passenger can walk from the front door of the airport to the boarding gate, having handed their passport to precisely nobody along the way, with cameras and sensors quietly handling every step of a process that used to require half a dozen separate human interactions. Chinese high-speed rail has pushed even further into the genuinely futuristic with magnetic levitation trains, floating above the track using magnetic force rather than touching it directly, reaching test speeds well over 600 kilometers per hour, faster than a typical commercial jet during takeoff, a speed that could theoretically cut the journey between Beijing and Shanghai down to a couple of hours, turning what used to be an overnight trip into something closer to a long lunch break. Payment has quietly gone even further past your phone. In a growing number of Chinese stores, universities, and train stations, people are paying simply by holding out their palm, using vein pattern recognition through systems tied to WeChat, a method banks and tech companies argue is actually harder to fake than a fingerprint, since the pattern of veins beneath your skin is far more difficult to lift or copy than a print left on a glass. Some of these palm scanning systems reportedly operate with an error rate lower than 1 in a million, tight enough that banks have started treating it as a viable everyday alternative to a physical card rather than a novelty. It sounds like something out of a spy film, and it's already sitting quietly in ordinary daily use for millions of people, to the point where students at some universities can walk into a canteen, hold out their hand over a scanner, and walk out with lunch, having touched nothing but their own tray the entire time. Farming hasn't been left behind either, and it might be the least glamorous but most quietly transformative example of all. Large agricultural drones capable of carrying around 100 kilograms of seed or pesticide now spray and seed fields automatically, working through the night using onboard sensors to avoid obstacles without a single person walking the rows. Specialized robotic rigs built specifically for cotton farming can trim and manage tens of hectares of crop in a single day, a pace that would otherwise require entire teams of seasonal laborers working from sunrise to sunset, and automated transplanting machines can plant several hectares of new crop in the time it takes a human crew to cover a fraction of that ground. It's not the kind of technology that ends up on a highlight reel next to a dancing supercar, but in terms of how many ordinary lives it touches every single day, it may end up mattering more than any single robot or record-breaking hypercar on this entire list. None of this is happening in isolation either. Beijing has started mandating AI education for school children as young as 6, building a generation that will grow up treating machine learning the way earlier generations treated basic arithmetic. Meanwhile, autonomous mining trucks the size of small buildings haul tens of tons of material with nobody behind the wheel. Robotic road building equipment lays highway surface using GPS-guided precision without a human operator nearby. And agricultural drones capable of carrying 100 kilograms of pesticide or seed now handle work that used to require entire teams of labourers, covering dozens of hectares a day at a pace no human crew could realistically match. Whether every part of this rollout lives up to its own marketing is a fair question, and plenty of these systems are still working through real limitations, from battery life measured in a couple of hours to robots that still occasionally stumble in public demonstrations. And some Chinese robotics firms have already faced real scrutiny abroad, including a 2025 security disclosure that found a shared, hard-coded digital key across an entire line of robots. Serious enough that manufacturers had to scramble to patch it once researchers went public. But the direction of travel is unmistakable. In survey after survey, a strikingly large majority of people in China report being comfortable with autonomous vehicles and public-facing robots, a comfort level noticeably higher than in the United States or much of Europe. And that cultural willingness to actually use this technology in daily life, not just build prototypes of it, might end up mattering just as much as the hardware itself. It's worth remembering too that almost none of this required a single dramatic, headline-grabbing breakthrough moment. There was no single announcement where China revealed a finished robot army or an all-knowing surveillance grid overnight. Instead, dozens of separate companies in cars, robotics, logistics, agriculture, and rail have each been quietly shipping real, working, commercially available products for the last 2 to 3 years. And the compounding effect of all of them landing at roughly the same time is what makes the pace feel so sudden from the outside looking in. What's actually happening in China right now isn't one single dramatic breakthrough. It's dozens of different fields, cars, robots, payments, farming, transportation, all being pushed hard and pushed simultaneously, with real products already sitting in ordinary people's hands rather than staying locked in a research lab. Whether the rest of the world catches up, ignores it, or ends up quietly adopting the same technology a few years later is still an open question. But the pace on display right now is real, it's measurable, and it's moving considerably faster than most people outside China currently realise.